I invited you to be here. So from a timing point of view, things just
Perfect.
I know, isn't it
Oh,
awesome?
you're a genius.
So, you know what? If only I could get an audience so that people could actually hear this stuff. In any case, let's get it captured at least.
Sure. Actually, I want to take it past branding.
Fair enough.
We're not getting rid of the United Way.
Correct.
The United Way structure still exists. We still are going to be doing agencies, but there's a different funding. There's a different way in which we're going to be, and we're going to call it the community chest, which in the old days, in the very old days, it was red feather. And then it became,
Really? Wow.
that's really old. And then it became the community chest. And what we're hankering to is the community side of it. We already have the United Way, which has their organizations, industry, business, that kind of stuff, and individual givers, that kind of. So what we're doing is with the community chest is engaging their whole community in the United Way. So there's actually parallel that's happening, branding of the community chest, and the staff have done a revision. They did a review. They did an overview. They kind of dissected everything, and they're making some changes. The agencies are all on board, and it'll look a little different than it did before through the community chest, but also the United Way. The old, I was involved in the United Way for about 11 years, and as I moved on to something else, one of the things that we kept doing was we set a goal, and we did a review of what the needs were. We set a goal, and we didn't hit the goal. There was a time where we missed about 7 years in a row. We didn't hit goal. And then the following year, they would raise the goal. So we'd have to raise more than we didn't raise the year before, 7 times. And I thought to myself, guys, this is kind of getting stale.
Is that number generated locally or from a head office?
No, it's a local review.
Local number. Okay.
It's a local review. But the problem is that the agencies were saying, this is how much money we need to operate, blah, blah, blah.
And their needs grow.
And they continue. But the problem is that we were not hitting our goal. And the more you didn't hit your goal, the less likely it was you weren't going to hit a higher goal the next time.
If you were a government, that would be a deficit.
That would
continue.
All right, here we go.
There we go.
Now, all of that said, there's going to be a review of that. That's already taken place, and they're going to set that tone of how that's going to play out. And then the community chest was when Paul Williamson and I were asked to come in, Paul specifically, because he's been a champion of the United Way, like a real champion.
Yeah, I saw that when I was reading the article.
Huge.
Once again, names you never hear about, right? Because it's not about them.
And it's not about Paul. Didn't worry about anything. He didn't want the lights. He didn't want the cameras.
He probably felt awkward in that photo.
He did.
Yeah.
He did. He was not happy. But I told him.
But sometimes you have to.
Okay, Grandpa, get in the picture. So all of that said, we then took that task and said, let's bring back all of the chairs or co-chairs or vice chairs of the United Way that were okay with this. So we explained to them what we were doing, and to a person, they all said, great idea. Everybody that we were able to contact wanted to be there. Some couldn't make it. They had commitments. But we had about 10 or 15 previous chairs and letters from others.
And this is what I find interesting. That list, if you were to put that group and tally it all up.
All leaders.
Oh, my God. And it goes back to your conversation earlier about the teaching as well. When Dave puts the call out, people come.
They all did.
But these are also people that over the course of decades put their blood into this. So of course they had a vested interest in seeing it continue,
and they want to see it succeed.
Well, that's the big difference, right?
And when they all came, and surprisingly or not surprisingly, in my opinion, not surprisingly, most of them either ended up being a mayor or an MP or an MPP. Not just because they wanted their name out on lights, but because their natural leadership tendencies was, I'm going to help the United Way, or I'm going to do charity work. Don't even have to say the word United Way. No. I'm going to do charity work because I just like to lead. I like to be part of a charity in my community, and they're community leaders. A lot of them ended up being MPs and MPPs and passed, and it's an example of what we talked about a little bit earlier when we said about we all work together. It's about a focus, not about them. It's a focus about what's good for the community, and they've all stepped up. So the United Way has been positive rebranding, if you wish, but it's changed. We used it as a moment to kind of launch things and get things ready for the next campaign, and we're going to rock and roll this. So for the next few months, Paul and I are going to kind of put this community chest to work, see who wants to come on board, see who wants to be a community builder, and then hand it back to the United Way and say, okay,
here's a working model.
Job's done.
Yeah. You're building basically the factory for them to operate from this point forward.
Yeah, well said. Well said. Yeah. Gee, that was a good one.
That was a good one. Every so often. Anything else you want to add on that one before we move on to the next charity?
No, we're ready.
So once again, just to recap that one quickly, that's a prime example of not only multiple levels of government that came together, but also decades of volunteers.
Yes.
So that now, as you say, are either leaders in organizations, leaders in government, or have been some form of leaders. So once again, a positive example. And my hope here, seeing that we're using this as a use case, that we will have a positive use case when we look at this after this campaign and we see A to B shift and you see that line go
we'll
this
review
way.
it.
Exactly.
Of course.
And that's what you do, right?